before starting my project off, I just wanted to show you a past project of mine that I'm going to be loosely basing the design off of. So obviously this is a much more complex project that I put together in the past, and it's a mixture of like a turtle and a humanoid kind of character. I'm going to be following some similar design things for the body and just kind of treating it. Maybe I'm making a toddler version of this, but I just kind of wanted to show you this at the very beginning stages. So as I start to lay out my ZSpheres and lay out the larger forms for this, you kind of know the direction that I'm headed in with this thing. So this is basically what I'm going to be basing the project off of. Okay, to start the project off, I'm just going to hit the comma key, and if we go to our projects, we're just starting with the Dynasphere 128, and so I think that's always a pretty nice starting point for a project. I'm going to go to the subtool area, and we're going to immediately add ZSphere. And so if we hit append and then go to ZSphere, we can add this within here. If I select it and if I hit solo, you can see this is the size of the ZSphere. So just a real quick thing about ZSpheres. They're basically a way of creating geometry kind of quickly, and it almost feels like you're building things out of a skeleton. Now I know looking at a ZSphere on its own is not going to feel so much like a skeleton, but you'll see as we start to add to this what I mean by this. So the first thing I'm going to do is tap X to turn symmetry on, and you should see the little marker along through there like that. If I turn solo off, we've got this going on here. It's going to be hidden behind the polysphere. I'm going to put it on scale and just click and then drag out, and then click and then drag out. I'm going to keep doing that until I can actually see the Z-sphere, and I'm just going to make it about the same size as the polysphere, like that. Okay, so that should give us a nice kind of starting point for the scale, and it should be something that we're used to with the different projects that we've already been working with on there. Because I've set the scale of this, I don't really need the polysphere turned on anymore. And so we could scale this just like we were seeing. If we put it on move, we can only move it really up and down right now because we have symmetry turned on, so we can't really push it this way or this way. If we turn symmetry off, we would be able to do that, but leave symmetry on, tap X like this. And then if we also do rotate, you're not really going to notice anything with rotate at this point either. So the next thing we're going to do is put it on draw. So if we draw out, if we click and drag out, you can see we can add new Z-spheres kind of pulling off of here, like maybe these are shoulders, and then these would be the beginnings of a hip or something like that. I'm going to hit undo for that. If we pull our cursor really close to the center, you'll see that those join together, turn green. That means now if I click and drag out, it's going to draw a Z-sphere directly from the center. What I do know about the geometry for this is if we create it right now, we're going to get some funky stuff going on at the bottom. So I like to draw a Z-sphere from the top and start that off, and then go to the bottom and then click and then drag out, and then we've got one for the bottom. Now if we tap A, it's going to give us a preview of the mesh that it's going to make, and if we go and scroll down here to this adaptive skin area, this is really what we're doing. We're turning on and off this preview. Let's turn off the Dynamesh resolution, and if we click preview, turn on polyframe, you can see what it's going to do. It's going to give us topology, it's going to give us polygroups for the top and the bottom, and it basically is kind of make a membrane around here for these things. Now if we take this density and drag it up to like 4, you can see we're going to get a really nice kind of smooth topology for this. Now with this Dynamesh resolution, what it's basically doing is taking this topology that you see here and it's converting it over to Dynamesh immediately. So if we put this at 256 like that, and then turn off preview and then turn it back on, you can see it's going to immediately give us a Dynamesh version. So I think that's pretty cool, but I think you need to know what's going on behind the scenes a little bit. If I turn the polyframe off, you can see what we've got going on here. I don't like that it's giving us this this faceting kind of look, so we can take the density and maybe pull it up to 6, and you can see that's going to be nice and smooth for us. So let's turn preview off for this at this point. And what I would like for the design, I'm going to go to the side, and then we're going to, we're going to put this on move, and we're going to drag this thing up a little bit. One thing that's kind of cool, let's say this is going to be our stomach, and then this will be the basin of our neck. If we want to click and add a new Z-sphere on any one of these spheres that you see through here, they're not really geometry yet. We can click draw and then just tap on one of them, and then that makes it into a Z-sphere. And now we can manipulate that. We can take it and we can move it around. Let's put it on move right here, and you can take this and you can move it like that, right? And the other thing is you can scale it at this point like this. And if we start to have a chain of things, if we go to rotate, we can click and drag on the bone of this thing, and we can rotate this around here. We can click and then drag that as well. So it's kind of a nice way. Like you can see I'm getting a nice little S bend or S curve in maybe what would be my spine. So if I wanted this to be the top for the shoulders, I do have to turn this into like an actual Z-sphere. And then now I got it on draw, and I can click and I can drag out like this. And if it's too close to the Z-spheres down there, it turns it into a negative. So if I tap A, let me just show you kind of what that looks like. It's kind of creasing into this. So I do have to be a little bit careful about that. So I'm going to hit undo and then just drag out maybe one like that. And I think I'll be pretty good for this here. Now I'm going to take the same thing and then click and drag out down here. And then this will be the basis for maybe this is my clavicles coming out. And then these are going to be my hips. And if I want to control the scale of it, just click and drag and then scale this up a bit. And we can click and drag and scale this up. But you see what's going on there. Let me try this and see if we draw another one in through here and then just move it ever so slightly, if that's going to alleviate some of those problems with this, where if I move this, yeah, it's still kind of running into that. So it's just something to be kind of careful with. If I tap A for this, you can see this is the mesh that it's producing for me. And I can take the Dynamesh resolution down. Let's do 128. I don't need tons of topology at the very beginning, so I think that'll be pretty good for me. And then now I'm going to draw out. And if I draw out right in the middle and then hold down shift, it'll snap and it'll become the same exact size of what we see here, like that. So I'm just going to drag this out here, and then I'm going to hit draw, make one here, and then move it up just a little bit like this, and then scale it to make this a bit larger for the head of this. And then if I want to do a tail, I'm going to click and drag out from the center and then drag out from here like that, and then I'll move it. Tap A just to check this along the way. And so we're not going to produce perfect geometry. We're just going to make just kind of a nice shape that that works for us, and then we will convert that over, and we'll be able to start sculpting on it. So it'll be a nice option for us. I'm just going to move this up just a little bit, and you can spend quite a bit of time on this part for sure. And I think it would be wise of you to do so, because this is kind of like the gesture of your creature and your character. You saw that if I click and drag that up, that becomes a negative at that point, which is interesting. So I'm just going to drag this out just a little bit more, like that. Pull this down here, maybe this like here. Be a little bit careful about that. And then now I'm going to draw out, and I'll draw one out for the legs. And I'll make my legs about this thick, and then I'll just move this down. And this will give me about the length of my legs. And I kind of want this to be back just a little bit. I want the character to make sure it feels like it's nice and balanced. So I'll take the draw, I'll put it right in the middle of this, and then I'll be able to move this as like a knee at this point. And if we want to pull this out, we could do that, or we can pull this in. I think I'm going to give just a little bit of tug out like that. Maybe pull these in. And then I'll draw this out, hold down shift, and then I can move this down to the bottom. And I'm going to give them kind of longer arms, and then I'll draw an elbow in this area and then move. So this is really nice for being able to rough out the shapes, get the overall proportions going for things. And yeah. So the other thing is I don't I don't know if this is going to work all that well or not. I was going to try to see about doing something for maybe the shape of eyes going in here just to get something started, and I can pull these forward and pull this in just like this, just a little bit. And I'll tap A, and you can see, yeah, it's going to give me something decent for that. So I'm just kind of try to manipulate these just a little bit just to get, again, more of the gesture kind of moving for this. Let's see if I do draw these out like this and see if I can get something for a chest. I don't know if that's the best. I'm going to try to draw here, then maybe draw out from here. I'm just trying to get a little bit of weight going in this area. And I'm not super thrilled with that. So I'll tap A, hit undo. And I think this will be a pretty good starting point for me on here. Okay, so we can save this thing off. This is our ZSphere skeleton. We could duplicate it, but what I'm going to show you is when we go to the adaptive skin area, when we hit preview, you can say make adaptive skin, and it's actually going to make a new piece of geometry for you. See, it says skin. Let's see the name of it. Skin ZSphere 1. So it takes the name of the ZSphere and it appends the skin name to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pin this in, and I'm going to go to skin ZSphere like that. And then this is going to be actual geometry that we're going to be able to sculpt on. This will be our ZSphere. I'm going to tap A to take it out of the ZSphere mode, put on solo. So you can see we've got that. We've got our polysphere, which I don't really need that. I can just delete that out. So I'm going to keep this around and keep it within here, and then I'll just rename this and I'll call this body. And this will be at least the first starting point for us to rough everything out for our character. So I know it's going to be a pretty rough shape, but it's going to at least give us geometry that we can start to sculpt on, and we can start to manipulate, and we can start to build our character out with. Okay, so take the time to rough your shapes out and get your overall proportions and your length of your arms and legs and limbs and things like that worked out.